There is a plant sitting in millions of homes right now that most people think they understand. They know it tolerates neglect. They know it survives in dark corners. They know it is the plant you give to someone who kills everything else. But there is something about this plant that almost nobody talks about. Something that changes when it flowers. Something in its biology that operates differently from almost every other plant on Earth. And something in its chemistry that makes it simultaneously one of the most beneficial plants you can own and one of the most dangerous things you can put within reach of a child or a pet. This is the snake plant, and you do not know nearly as much about it as you think you do. Welcome to Gaia Lost Vault. The snake plant is known scientifically as Dracaena trifasciata. For most of its recorded history, it was called Sansevieria trifasciata, a name given in 1794 by Swedish botanist Carl Peter Thunberg to honor Raimondo di Sangro, the Prince of Sansevieria, an Italian nobleman who was both a patron of botany and one of the most mysterious figures in 18th century European science. Di Sangro was known for conducting bizarre chemical experiments that observers at the time could not explain, and for allegedly discovering secrets of the natural world that he refused to share publicly. That the snake plant was named after him is, in retrospect, fitting, because this plant has been holding secrets that most people have never been told. The plant is native to tropical West Africa, specifically the dry, rocky regions extending from Nigeria to the Congo. In its natural habitat, it does not grow in the lush, watered conditions most people imagine for houseplants. It grows in thin, nutrient-poor soil under a canopy that provides shade for most of the day. It survives droughts that last for months. It stores water in its thick, rigid leaves, and it has developed a biological survival strategy so unusual that it places it in a category of plant that represents fewer than 10% of all flowering species on Earth. Most plants on this planet perform what is called C3 photosynthesis. They open the tiny pores on their leaves, called stomata, during the day to take in carbon dioxide, convert it to sugars using sunlight, and release oxygen as a byproduct. This is the photosynthesis process you learned in school. The snake plant does not do this. It uses a process called Crassulacean Acid Metabolism (CAM) photosynthesis, which reverses the entire timing of gas exchange. The stomata on a snake plant open at night, not during the day. Carbon dioxide is absorbed in the dark and stored in the leaves as malate. During the daylight hours, with the stomata closed to prevent water loss, the plant uses that stored carbon dioxide to perform photosynthesis and releases its oxygen. In a world where nearly every other plant is releasing carbon dioxide at night, the snake plant is quietly doing the opposite. This is why every bedroom in the world that contains a snake plant has slightly better air at night than a bedroom without one. Not dramatically better. The science on the actual volume of oxygen produced is more modest than internet claims suggest. But the direction of the exchange, oxygen released, carbon dioxide absorbed during the hours you are sleeping, is real, documented, and confirmed by the research of B.C. Wolverton, the primary researcher on NASA's 1989 Clean Air Study, which first brought this plant to widespread public attention. Wolverton's study, formally titled A Study of Interior Landscape Plants for Indoor Air Pollution Abatement, was commissioned by NASA to investigate whether houseplants could help clean the air in energy-efficient buildings and eventually in space stations. The snake plant was one of 12 plants tested. The results showed it removed benzene, trichloroethylene, and formaldehyde from sealed test chambers. Benzene is a chemical found in cigarette smoke, paint, and furniture finishes. Formaldehyde is released from pressed wood products, carpeting, and building materials. The snake plant does not eliminate these compounds. It reduces them. And in the enclosed, low ventilation environments that energy-efficient buildings are designed to create, that reduction matters. But here is what the 1989 study was actually about, and why most of what gets said about it online misses the point entirely. Wolverton's research was not measuring whether a single snake plant could clean a room. It was measuring whether plants combined with activated carbon filter systems could reduce trace organic pollutants in the kind of sealed, recirculated air environments that NASA was designing for space habitation. The plant, in that context, was one component of a multi-part system. The air quality improvements documented in the study required specific conditions, sealed chambers, measured concentrations, controlled time periods that do not replicate the average living room with open windows and regular ventilation. The science is real. The application is more nuanced than the headline. And Wolverton himself noted in his research that the root zone, the microorganisms living in the soil of a potted plant, was often responsible for a larger portion of the toxin removal than the leaves themselves. What that means for you is this. A snake plant in your bedroom is a genuine benefit, not a life support system, not a replacement for ventilation, but a living, working member of your indoor environment that operates on a biological schedule different from almost every other plant you own, cleaning the air during the hours you need it most. That is the biology of what this plant does. But the reason it blooms, that is a different story entirely. Most people who own snake plants for years never see a flower. The plant can live a decade in a pot on a windowsill and never produce a single bloom. When a snake plant does flower, most owners are surprised. Some are alarmed. And the alarm comes from a myth that has circulated among plant communities for years that a snake plant blooming means it is dying. That myth is wrong. But the truth behind why the snake plant flowers is stranger and more interesting than the myth. Sansevieria trifasciata is a survival machine. Every biological response it has is optimized around one priority, staying alive in conditions that would kill most other plants. When a snake plant experiences sustained mild stress, when its roots have filled every inch of available space in the pot, when it has gone weeks or months with reduced water, when it senses conditions that could threaten its reproduction, it makes a decision. It redirects energy away from producing new leaves and toward producing seeds. The flower stalk emerges from the base. In indoor conditions, this typically happens in spring or early summer. The stalk grows upright, sometimes reaching 3 feet in height, and produces clusters of small, tubular, greenish-white flowers. The flowers open at night. They emit a fragrance described as intensely sweet, sometimes compared to vanilla or jasmine. They drip a clear, sticky nectar from their bases. The blooming is not a sign that the plant is about to die. It is a sign that the plant is trying to ensure the next generation survives the conditions it perceives to be threatening its current one. It is the plant's version of making preparations. A root-bound snake plant that flowers is not dying. It is strategic, but here is where you need to pay attention. Because the bloom brings something with it that most people do not know. The nectar that the snake plant produces during flowering is not just fragrant. It is sticky, abundant, and it drips. It will stain whatever surface it falls on. Within days of a flower stalk opening, you will find the residue on your floors, your shelves, the leaves below the stalk, and any pet or child who gets close enough. This is purely a practical matter and manageable with a cloth or a plate placed beneath the stalk. But it is one of the details that nobody mentions when they talk about the rare and beautiful event of a snake plant blooming. The second thing you need to know about the bloom is more serious. It applies to the plant in all its forms, flowering or not. But the bloom is where most people first encounter the part of the snake plant that no amount of air purification research can offset. Every part of the snake, plant the leaves, the roots, the flower stalks, the flowers themselves, and the berries that can follow the flowers, contains compounds called saponins. Saponins are naturally occurring chemical compounds that the plant produces as a defense system. They function as a natural insecticide, a fungicide, and a deterrent against the bacteria and microorganisms that would otherwise attack the plant's roots and leaves in its native African soil. Saponins are the reason snake plants rarely get sick. They are also the reason snake plants are toxic to cats, dogs, and children. When saponins are ingested, they cause gastrointestinal irritation. In cats and dogs, the symptoms include vomiting, diarrhea, drooling, loss of appetite, swollen mouth and throat, lethargy, and in cases of significant ingestion, disruption of red blood cell membranes that can lead to anemia. The American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals lists the snake plant as toxic to both cats and dogs. The toxicity is classified as mild to moderate for most animals, meaning it is unlikely to be fatal from casual contact, but significant enough to require veterinary attention if a pet consumes a meaningful amount. For children, the same principle applies. Contact with the plant sap can cause skin dermatitis, a rash, or inflammation. Ingestion of any part of the plant warrants immediate contact with a doctor or poison control. The plant that is removing benzene from your bedroom air at night is doing it with the same chemistry that makes it potentially dangerous to the living things sharing that bedroom. This is not a reason to get rid of it. It is a reason to know what it is. Raimondo di Sangro, the Prince of Sansevieria, after whom this plant was named, spent his life studying the properties of the natural world, particularly the properties of things that appeared to be one thing but were in fact something else entirely. A substance that healed and harmed simultaneously, a material that protected in one context and threatened in another. He would have appreciated the snake plant. Here is everything you need to know to live with one correctly. Place the snake plant in indirect light. It will survive in low light, but it grows best in bright, indirect conditions. Direct sun will scorch the leaf edges. A position near a north or east-facing window is ideal in most homes. Avoid south-facing windows where afternoon sun is direct and intense. Water it far less than you think you should. The single most common way people kill snake plants is overwatering. In spring and summer, water when the top 2 inches of soil are completely dry. In autumn and winter, water once every 6 to 8 weeks. Snake plants rot from overwatering faster than they suffer from drought. Their cam physiology is built for dry conditions. Trust that, and resist the urge to water on a schedule. Do not repot it frequently. The snake plant is more likely to bloom and to thrive in a slightly root-bound condition. A pot that is one size larger than the root mass is the ideal maximum. Moving it to a significantly larger pot shifts the plant's energy from leaf and root growth toward filling the new space, which slows everything else down. Keep it completely out of reach of pets and children. Place it on a high shelf, in a room the animals do not access, or behind a barrier. The toxicity is real. The saponin compounds are present in every part of the plant, and the consequences of a curious cat chewing on a lower leaf or a toddler pulling on the flower stalk are predictable. The snake plant is one of the most beneficial houseplants in existence. That benefit does not require placing it anywhere a child or animal can reach it. If it blooms, place a shallow plate or a cloth beneath the flower stalk to catch the nectar drip. Do not cut the flower stalk while it is active. Allow it to complete its cycle, which typically lasts several weeks. The flowers will dry, the stalk will brown, and then you can cut it cleanly at the base. Some plants rebloom in subsequent years under the same conditions. Others bloom once and return to their vegetative growth pattern for years before flowering again. The night the snake plant opens its flowers, if you are in the room, you will smell it. A sweet, heavy fragrance that seems out of proportion to the small, inconspicuous clusters of tubes that produced it. Most people who finally witness their snake plant bloom describe the experience as unexpected. A plant they thought was purely architectural, upright, structural, silent, turns out to be capable of something else entirely. Raimondo di Sangro was described by his contemporaries as a man who understood that the most powerful things in nature were the ones that appeared simple until you looked closely enough. The snake plant has been in your home for years. You have walked past it hundreds of times. You have watered it occasionally, moved it to a new pot once or twice, wondered if it was alive. It has been absorbing carbon dioxide while you slept, removing trace compounds from your air, storing water against the possibility of a drought it expects based on nothing but its own ancient biology, and waiting for the conditions that tell it the time has come to flower. The plant named after a man who kept secrets has been keeping its own. Now you know them. If this vault opens something for you, subscribe to Gaia Lost Vault and hit the bell. Every like and every share preserves what they tried to erase. The next vault opens soon.